Okay, so have you ever felt like you're building something incredible?
But not like with bricks and mortar, you
Yeah.
know, like with remembrance.
Sounds kind of wild, right?
Yeah, it's
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
with this Murli, this daily discourse.
It paints this really fascinating picture of how we can actually construct our own heaven.
It is fascinating.
And it makes even more sense when you think about the whole belief system it comes from.
Because this Murli isn't talking about some afterlife we're waiting for
It's speaking to like a state of being.
that we can achieve within this reincarnation cycle.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Because you'd think reaching heaven, that would be motivation enough, right?
All right.
But this Murli takes this totally different approach.
It's not about passively waiting for something good to happen.
It's about actively building it.
It even calls us the listeners the greatest craftsmen.
And the material we're using.
It isn't concrete and steel,
It's remembrance.
but it's not just about remembering memories.
It's a much deeper, like a more active form of awareness.
Okay, so unpack that a bit.
What does remembrance actually look like in practice?
Okay, so imagine this,
You're sitting quietly, focusing your mind,
but not on like your everyday worries or your to-do list.
but on connecting with this higher power, with Shiva Baba.
That focused awareness, that striving to connect, that's the essence of remembrance in this context.
It's about peeling back those layers of past actions, of negative karma.
To reveal the pure divine essence that's already within you.
So it's like a spiritual deep clean. You're not just remembering, you're actively cleansing and refining yourself.
Exactly.
And that inner transformation, that's the real construction project here.
The Murli is suggesting that the state of heaven,
It's not like a physical place we go to when we die.
but something we cultivate within ourselves through this practice of remembrance.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects.
It's not about where we go.
But the state of being we cultivate in this life,
And speaking of states of being,
the Murli gets pretty vivid with this imagery.
there's this whole thing about being trapped in a bog and crying out for a purifier to help us.
What's the deeper meaning there?
It's powerful, that image of the bog.
It represents that cycle of suffering, the endless rounds of reincarnation driven by karma.
You know, by the consequences of our actions,
We can get so stuck in those cycles, weighed down by all that negativity.
stuck in the mud of our own making.
And that's where the purifier comes in.
This represents the divine, Shiva Baba, who offers a way out of that bog.
A path to liberation.
But here's the key.
This escape, it isn't about physical death. It's about spiritual liberation from that cycle while we're still alive.
So it's not about dying and then going to heaven.
But about reaching that state of liberation, that inner heaven, now while we're still here.
That's a pretty profound shift in perspective.
It is.
And to really drive this point home, the Murli contrasts traditional pilgrimages with what it calls the pilgrimage of remembrance.
Right, and this is where I need a little more clarification.
What makes this kind of pilgrimage superior?
Don't all pilgrimages involve some element of remembrance, of connecting with something sacred?
Absolutely.
And the Murli acknowledges that outward rituals have value.
But it's saying that those outward actions, while important, are ultimately less important than the inner journey of self-realization.
The true pilgrimage, the one that truly matters, is about purifying our thoughts and actions, about aligning ourselves with that divine essence within.
Through this consistent practice of remembrance.
So it's less about the physical journey and more about the inner transformation that happens along the way.
Exactly.
It's that inner shift, that liberation from all those cycles of rebirth.
That's what ultimately defines this spiritual journey.
The Murli even takes it a step further.
It suggests that even within heaven, there's this hierarchy.
Wait, so even paradise has levels.
What determines your place in this heavenly pecking order?
This is where your personal responsibility is so important.
The text suggests that heaven isn't a single destination.
It's not static.
It's a reflection of your spiritual progress.
It's a bit like climbing a mountain with all these different levels of attainment.
And how high you climb depends on your effort, purity, and yes, you guessed it, the consistency of your remembrance.
So it's not enough to just acknowledge Shiva Baba, to just go through the motions of rituals or meditation.
It's about embodying those principles.
Making them a part of who you are.
Precisely.
The Murli is making a powerful statement here
It's about striving for that inner transformation.
about constantly seeking a deeper connection with that divine essence.
And this isn't a one-time achievement,
It's an ongoing process,
a lifelong pursuit.
even life after lifetime,
And that pursuit,
according to the Murli,
that's what truly defines our experience.
both in this life and beyond.
So it's not like you reach a certain level and then you're good. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's about constantly striving, always refining yourself.
Exactly. And the Murli actually drives this point home with this really intriguing passage.
It basically says that even just a little bit of this remembrance can get you to heaven.
Okay, that sounds almost too easy.
Like, where's the catch?
The catch, well, as with most things in life, I guess, is consistency and effort.
Think of it like building a house.
But not just with remembrance this time, with actual, like, bricks and mortar.
You wouldn't expect to build a whole mansion by just placing one brick a day, would you?
Definitely not. You've got to show up every day, put in the work, day after day.
Precisely. And this spiritual journey, it's no different.
It's about that daily dedication, the continual effort to purify your thoughts, your actions.
To really align yourself with that divine essence.
So it's like training for a marathon. Like, just signing up doesn't magically make you a marathoner, does it?
Right.
It's that daily grind, the dedication to the practice that ultimately gets you across that finish line.
And in this case, the finish line isn't just like a point in time.
It's that state of being that we've been talking about.
It's about really embodying those qualities of that higher spiritual plane: purity, love, knowledge.
And then letting those qualities guide your actions in the physical world.
Which, let's be real, isn't always easy.
In fact, the Murli doesn't shy away from how challenging this path can be.
Remember that part about the extreme depths of hell and those 5 evil spirits?
Yes, the text definitely paints a very vivid picture of the world that we're living in.
It's describing it as this place that's consumed by lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego.
Those 5 evil spirits that can keep us stuck, mired in all that negativity and suffering.
It's like we're all wading through this like metaphorical bog. Remember that from earlier.
And those vices are the things that are weighing us down, making it harder and harder to reach that state of liberation.
That inner heaven.
That's a great way to put it.
And the Murli is very clear here. It's our attachment to these things.
To all those fleeting pleasures of this physical realm that keeps us trapped in that cycle of suffering.
Okay, so how do we break free then?
How do we even begin to navigate this challenging landscape?
Well, that's where our connection to Shiva Baba, to that divine figure, becomes so crucial.
Because the Murli emphasizes that we can't do it alone.
We need that guiding force, that connection to something greater than ourselves to help us rise above those 5 evil spirits.
And to ultimately break free from that karmic cycle.
And there's this real sense of urgency in the Murli's language here.
Right.
You know,
It's almost like a desperate plea for help.
like it's saying, look, you're stuck in this bog, but there's a way out. Reach out, connect, and let's get you moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And even with this urgency, what I find so interesting is that the Murli still emphasizes personal responsibility.
It acknowledges that even in heaven, even when we've, achieved a certain level of spiritual growth, there are still levels.
There are still opportunities to rise even higher.
So it's not like you reach some utopia and then can just kick back and relax.
Even in that elevated state, there's still work to be done. Still progress to be made.
That's right. The Murli is really highlighting that spiritual growth is this ongoing process.
It's not linear. There will be, ups and downs, moments of progress, and moments where we might, stumble a little bit.
It reminds me of that saying, the journey is the destination.
It's not about reaching that final point.
It's about that continuous process of self-refinement, of aligning ourselves more and more with that divine essence within.
And that process, as the Murli explains, involves recognizing the cyclical nature of time.
Just like, the universe goes through these cycles of creation and destruction.
Our own spiritual journeys are also marked by these periods of growth and decline, progress and setbacks.
So even achieving that state of heaven, that inner transformation, isn't a one-and-done deal.
There is always that potential to maybe slip back into old patterns, to get bogged down again by those 5 evil spirits.
Precisely. And that's why the Murli really stresses the importance of consistent effort.
It's about constantly reminding ourselves of these spiritual truths.
And really striving to live in accordance with them.
It's like anything worthwhile in life, right? Relationships, careers, personal growth.
They all require that continuous effort, that continuous attention.
So it all comes back to that idea of remembrance, doesn't it?
It's not just this one-time thing, but this continuous practice, a way of life.
Exactly. It's about integrating those spiritual principles into every aspect of our lives.
Making them the foundation of our thoughts, our words, and our actions.
Which, to be honest, sounds like a pretty tall order.
Especially given all the challenges that we face in this physical world, in this kingdom of Ravan, as the Murli calls it.
It is a tall order. The Murli doesn't sugarcoat the difficulties.
The difficulties that we encounter in this kingdom of Ravan, the temptations, the distractions, that constant pull towards those five evil spirits.
But even with all those challenges, there's this underlying message of hope, of empowerment, wouldn't you say?
This idea that we have a choice, that we're not just passive players in some predetermined cosmic play.
Absolutely. We absolutely have the power to choose our own path.
To decide how we show up in the world and what we prioritize.
And those choices, according to the Murli, have eternal consequences.
They shape not only our experience in this life, but our trajectory through countless lifetimes.
That's right. The decisions that we make, the actions that we take.
They create ripples that extend far beyond our immediate understanding.
It's both, I don't know, daunting and incredibly empowering at the same time.
It means that even like the smallest acts of kindness, of love, of remembrance can have this really profound impact.
Not just on our own lives, but on the world around us. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful reminder that even amidst all the chaos and challenges of life,
We have that power to create something beautiful, something lasting, something truly divine. But how do we actually put all of this into practice?
how do we take these teachings from, the theoretical to the practical? Well, the good news is the Murli doesn't just leave us with these grand concepts.
It actually offers some really specific advice,
So it's not enough to just get these ideas right.
right?
We have to actually live them, put them into practice.
Exactly. And the Murli actually gives us a roadmap
It all kind of boils down to this idea of purification.
of really actively cleansing our minds, our hearts from those five evil spirits that we were talking about.
Okay, so like a spiritual spring cleaning.
What does that actually look like?
Well, essentially it's about cultivating a real awareness.
An awareness of those negative tendencies within ourselves
The lust, the anger, the greed, attachment, ego,
and making a conscious effort to,
loosen their grip on us a little.
on our thoughts, our words, our actions.
That sounds really tough. Like, those are pretty deep down, aren't they?
Those are pretty human experiences.
They are.
Yeah.
But the Murli really emphasizes that we don't have to be slaves to those impulses.
We have the power to choose a different path.
We can respond to challenges with, wisdom and compassion rather than just reacting impulsively out of negativity.
So not denying those emotions.
But learning to, manage them better.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that these negative emotions, these evil spirits, they just thrive in a mind that's, cluttered.
Weighed down by all those impurities.
All those selfish desires, resentment, the need for validation.
And that's where this whole pilgrimage of remembrance idea comes back in, right?
Precisely.
It's through that practice, that dedicated, consistent practice of connecting with Shiva Baba, with that divine essence within ourselves.
Yeah, we can start to clear away those impurities.
We can make space for something, purer, something more aligned with who we really are.
So almost like meditation.
But with this intention of actually cultivating love, compassion, understanding.
As we're connecting with that higher power.
Exactly. And as we weave those qualities into ourselves.
Our actions in the world will start to reflect that.
It's like that line from the Murli. The Father has brought heaven for you on the palm of his hand.
It's not some far off thing.
It's something we actually help create.
Through our choices. Through sticking to this path.
Beautifully put.
The Murli reminds us that we already have everything we need
Right here inside us.
to reach that liberation, that inner heaven.
But it's not always easy. And the Murli, it doesn't pretend it is, right?
Because I remember it saying, even if you reach a high status in this heaven, you can still lose it.
That's right. The text is very clear.
Spiritual progress, it's not just this straight climb to the top
There will be moments when we stumble.
when we maybe fall back into old habits.
So even in this higher state, we can't get too comfy.
We got to keep choosing the right path.
Precisely. And it's in those moments, when we're challenged and we're tempted to give in.
That's where we have the biggest opportunity to grow.
That's where our commitment is really tested, and refined.
It's about showing up every single day
Every lifetime even.
and choosing to nourish those good qualities inside us.
Beautifully said.
It's about embracing the whole journey.
All the ups and downs.
Because even the setbacks, the falls, those have lessons too, right?
They're chances for us to learn and grow.
Wow. That's powerful. It's like we're not just along for the ride.
We're actually shaping our own spiritual experience.
That's a message that I think really resonates, don't you?
Even if we don't follow all the details of this tradition.
There's something universal there about striving for something more.
And finding joy in that journey, in that growth.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the true Heaven.
It's not some reward somewhere else.
It's something we carry inside.
Something we build with every choice we make.
That is a really empowering thought to end on.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into this idea of constructing heaven,
Here's something to think about.
if heaven itself isn't static,
If there's always more to learn, even in that higher state,
what does that tell us about growth itself?
is there ever really an end?
Or is it just this constant, amazing journey?
Something to reflect on as you continue to build your own heaven.
One thought, one action, one act of remembrance at a time.
What a beautiful, profound question to leave us with.
Thank you for guiding us through this.
It's been a real exploration.
And thank you, dear listener, for joining us.
Until next time, may your journey be filled with purpose, joy, and possibilities.